Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Financially Free Investor podcast. I've got a good buddy here with me today, Brandon DeVere, and we are going to talk a little bit about his path to financial freedom. So Brandon, good to have you on, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We were down in Vegas a couple weekends ago looking at some investment properties with you, and great conversations. I felt like you have a lot to give other people. In fact, you even wrote a book, right?
Yeah, I did.
Cool. Well, give everyone a quick intro about yourself and anything that you'd want to share with them so they get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a small town, Central Washington, about like 2,000 people, very much into community and like growing up in that, which has been kind of the core of as I get older, kind of see that. Grew up, my dad was a school teacher and I lived in a school teacher's household. So we kind of had the one track mind of like what you do as far as you know, jobs go. You go to college, you get your degree, you do all that stuff. It was never really right for me. Like at college, I still joke today, if I would have gone to college so long that I never would have got a degree, even if I was going from when I started, because I would just take classes that were interesting to me and not necessarily go, because I would be like, oh, psychology, this is interesting. And then you jump like back and forth. So I kind of always had something else going on in my head other than that, you know, the path that was supposed to be laid out for us. Growing up in my small town was like, you had school teachers, you had loggers, you had small business owners, and kind of if you weren't in there, you were just kind of a, you know, an employee of one of those places, really. And then, you know, the opportunity came to move to Las Vegas. I came down here, I met my wife. We have 2 kids down here. I started working in the hospitality industry down on the Strip, you know, places like the Four Seasons, and like kind of cutting my teeth on, you know, how hospitality is done in certain ways and how it can be implemented into even in, you know, in investing and things like that, you know, that you do. I'm sure you find, you know, certain aspects where you have to be hospitable. But then I got into kind of back into real estate like a lot of agents do. Just, you know, some guy kept asking me if I could become a real estate agent. And I was like, yeah. He kept saying, oh, you'll make six figures effortlessly. And I'm like, yeah, don't approach me with that because I'm not believing you. And then finally I took it as a challenge, and I ended up, as I was working as a hookah boy, basically loading bowls for a living is what I did. My father was very proud. So I finally did that and then got into real estate. He disappeared, and I was on kind of the journey of just buying and selling, just that, you know, over and over again, that cycle until I was almost out of the industry because I was just burnt out from that. And was able to find a company that made a lot of sense for me because I wanted to be a broker, and I saw the value in that. Because even though I'm not a teacher, you know, in the traditional sense like my dad was, I gravitate towards teaching others, and I wanted to become a broker. But I realized that in the traditional model, I was just geographically limited on what I could do. So that's kind of how I got onto this journey of, you know, looking into like residual income and things like that. You know, at battle over, you know, years of what we think we're supposed to be doing because of what we're told over and over again. There's been a lot of trial and error on my end for sure, you know, and you like to read and do all that stuff, but that's kind of where I'm at now. And, you know, you mentioned the book. It's called The Semi-Retired Real Estate Agent because, you know, I feel like it's semi-retirement is more for me. I don't think I'll ever just stop doing things and just be completely like, you know, on the boat for, you know, 365, you know. So yeah, that's kind of how I got where I'm at now.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for that introduction. It speaks a lot to you and your character, and really cool that you were able to, you know, kind of reflect back and go, hey, even in college, I was kind of on this other journey versus, you know, maybe what society tells you we should do, which is, you know, like you said, you go to school, you get a job, you work at that job, and whether you like it or not, you know, you pay your bills and just keep moving forward. Right. But the residual or passive or horizontal income, however anyone phrases it, allows us to do more of what we want and less of what we don't want, right? Which opens up time freedom, Most real estate agents, I started as a real estate agent as well. And most real estate agents are working nights, they're working weekends, they never see their family. They're also running a small business. And so, they're having to do books and they're having to do cold calling and prospecting. And there's so much that goes into it that they forget, like, hey, why did I get into this? Right. They got into it for freedom, probably. Because they wanted to be their own boss. You mentioned the brokerage that you're with. I'm also affiliated with this brokerage. How, maybe you can go a little bit deeper into how you got started on your journey to financial freedom and having that passive or residual income coming in.
Yeah, so double down kind of on what you said earlier about like not knowing like residual incomes out there, whatever word you want to call it, that also has like, there's always like the negative connotation too, where the people who don't understand are like, well, you're making money off somebody else. And you know what I'm saying? So there's that, I deal with that still to this day where people are like that. What I wanted to do, I was at my local boutique 100% brokerage. I was top producer and I started looking around. Okay, now I want to start my own brokerage. And kind of I met some resistance from my current broker at the time because I was building a team at that brokerage. And I was like, hey, I want these people to go on and do better things. Because the challenge with the traditional model is that you have to, like, how do you really get your agents to be the best that they can be? Because eventually they're gonna like fly the nest, right? They're gonna outgrow you. And when you do that, that same broker told me, he's like, no, you need to get paid for the work you do. I go, yeah, but I would be excited to see somebody go off and build a great team. But the mentality was like, yeah, but you won't make money off of anymore. You won't be compensated anymore. But the teacher in me wanted to see people continue to grow. We just had dinner with some friends of mine and a partner from Canada that came into town. They were in town the last couple of days. So we went and met them for dinner last night. And like, they'll send me photos of like, I'm in Hawaii. Thank you for helping me do that. And that stuff is super exciting to me. But while I was at that brokerage, I wanted to look into becoming my own broker. Did I want to be a broker for them? I looked into everything, what would it cost? What would it, all the stuff. And as I was going through it, I started getting broker questions from my broker sending other agents to me. He's like, oh, ask Brandon. He might know. And I'm like, I'll answer it, but I'm not, if I'm wrong and they do something wrong, it's on you. So you might want to, run that past you as well. So while that was happening, I was going, man, the liability associated with it, the cost, and really the point, like I had a podcast called Learn for Two. And the idea was to learn with the intent to teach to others. And what I realized was like my impact was so limited, like I said, geographically, that in order for me, like I couldn't do what I'm doing now in the traditional model, not only because like the amount of funds that it would take and the amount of time that it would take for me to get like licensed and brokerages and places, all the states and countries that I'm in now. There's some places like Canada, I'm not a resident. So how do I even open up my own brokerage there? So I just saw that the ability not only to get the residual and have, income coming in. So I can, part of the reason I wrote the book is a couple of years ago, I made a commitment that I wasn't going to miss any more of my daughter's soccer games because I had to be an open house or showing homes or something like that, and you kind of alluded to it earlier. We have this idea of success in real estate as an agent, that it is like hustle, hustle, hustle. And, I did X amount of homes. I've really had a big epiphany recently on, there's some strong agents out there that, do 4 deals a year, and they're amazing agents, but the barometer that we have set for them is that, oh, you didn't do, 30, 40 deals this year, you're struggling, you're not a good agent. But, we were talking with our friends from Canada. It's a much more stringent to get your license up there than it is here. So it's less likely to have people that are doing just a couple deals a year up there. But I stand by that because I've seen some excellent agents that just do a handful of deals a year. But we are so focused in that hustle and trying to get more. Again, that's why I was like, I'm burnout. How can I shift this and my energy? And I also didn't want to be just talking contracts with people. I wanted to talk like this type of thing, like, hey, how can we leverage what you're doing now and get it to that next level than just like the intro stuff. So that's kind of where it started, and kind of lit a fire under me to be like, whoa, this is something different. This is something that other people can do. And it kind of, in my opinion, it leveled the playing field for those agents ready to take that next step. Because usually you go from like, you're an agent, you do a bunch of deals, you're feeling good. Now you either want to be a broker or property management. I had zero interest in managing properties, just because of my, limited knowledge in that area, and also the amount of work that I've seen other people do. And I'm like, I don't know that I want to go that route. And then the brokerage aspect was something that I wanted to do, but then I found a way to just leverage somebody else's brokerage to use and be able to, help other people that way.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you can kind of hop on a national brand that, is publicly traded on the NASDAQ. And there's just a lot of value in that, right? Like all across the nation, I think there's value in that and the training that they can provide. I've been at a couple other brokerages and it's unreal the amount of training that is at EXP, which is where we're brokered at, that you can do virtually, right? And, since the cerveza sickness hit a couple of years ago, a lot of people are virtual now. A lot of people are working from home, and it's way more normal now than it was even 3 years ago. So, I mean, I think it's great that you realized, hey, I want to be at my kids' soccer games. I want to, if someone comes into town over the weekend, I want to be able to go peel off and be able to do that. And passive income allows you to make those choices versus, hey, I got to pay my mortgage this month, so I got to be out showing houses when, my partners from Canada are here. And I really wish that we could go hang out. Because when maybe you've experienced this, but as you start getting closer and closer, you get more passive income, then all of a sudden, like, life just gets a little bit easier, right? Like all of a sudden you're now not worried that gas went from $3 a gallon to $4 a gallon overnight, right? You're like, okay, well, yeah, like it sucks, but at the end of the day, like, you have an abundance versus, you're working very finite and having to make different decisions. I think that's awesome. Thank you for.
Like, I've been at peace for the last few years of being like, you know what, there's some clients that, you go on Facebook groups and you just see all this. I had horror stories with these clients, right? But now in this spot, I have the freedom and the choice to be like, you know what, that $10,000 commission, I'll just refer that out. Like, I'm going to go here. We got a soccer tournament this weekend. They want to do all this stuff this weekend. You go ahead and do that. Thanks. I'll take the 25, 30% and I'll be good with it. As opposed to, when we first get out, we want it all. And, we talked briefly about this before. But like you said, now you got to lead gen, you got to do all these different things. And, the challenge, I think we hear quite often, like the failure rate for real estate agents is something like 88% or something within the first 2 years or something. And then the first 5, it's even less, or it's even higher. But there's a couple of different reasons for that.
Yeah. And not only the success or failure rate, but also, like, if you look at the divorce rate, realtors are up there with police officers, firefighters, right? Like guys that are, and gals that are actually doing like physically, mentally tough things, that then they have to switch that off and go home. And you and every other agent can probably relate, right? Like when I go home now, I can leave my phone.
Yeah.
Because I've built passive income. I've built my business in a way that, like, I work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. When I'm at home, I'm at home. I'm not, texting clients like, hey, let's go see this house, and, running off at 7 o'clock at night when I want to be tucking my kids in bed. And passive income allows you to make those choices that you get to decide what's most important instead of being run by your budget, which, I mean, real estate agents, they do a great service and great job, but they're spenders, right? Very much. Like, I think I saw a meme the other day on social media where, it said, if plumbers bragged the way that realtors do, they'd be like, hey, I just unclogged this drain for the Joneses, and I'm going to buy my new Mercedes. Like, let me know if you didn't need anyone needs plumbing work, right? Like it's the only industry, and even like business cards, right? Like, we're one of the only industries that people put their face on their business card. And I'm like, why?
It's funny that you say that. Like, I've never done it. And originally I didn't do it because I was, when I first got into it, I was young. And I was like, oh, I'm going to look, I think almost 10 years older than you. But back then I was like, I'm too young. People aren't going to trust me. They're going to think that I know what I'm doing because I'm too young. So I didn't put it on there. But then as I just kept going, I'm like, why put it on there? Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up.
Cool. So what is the one thing that you would want to tell someone who is working towards financial freedom?
So last week I was sitting there and I was like, why did it take so long for me to understand like the passive and the residual opportunities there? I thought for so long that you had to work, like there was proof, you had to show like sweat, right? Clock in, clock out, like do all that. and show like a proof of work. But I thought the other day, I go, all these things that I'm doing right now, like I'm now the COO of an app that we're trying to launch here in Las Vegas. Or it's actually launched, but we're pitching it to investors and things like that. But that opportunity came to me because I wasn't out selling homes, just stuck to that. I had residual going on, and I started doing things that were fun for me, which was going out and interviewing local business owners, doing TikTok videos or full hour-long podcasting interviews on location. And people started noticing that, and like around and around away, this guy reached out to me and he's like, hey, I need you to work with me. And so that's not possible with me just going home to home to home to home over and over and over again. So what I thought about last week is like, how does this opportunity get to you? And then I kind of broke it down, like reverse engineer all the way. Yeah, well, it's because you're doing videos. Why are you doing videos? Well, because, you want it to be, part of the community, going back to me growing up in a small town. And then as I got back to it, it came down to something very simple. I didn't have to go to do like regular work, if that makes sense. I was able to, I had time freedom to go do some things that were cool for me. And that turned into another business opportunity that I wasn't even searching for it. And I've had, other people contact me that want to work together because of those same videos. And this isn't a pitch to like go do a bunch of video, which I think is awesome. But I got a chance back to, talking about as we're children and what we want to teach our children. Like I tell my kids, I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, it doesn't have to exist yet. YouTube, like there's people making millions of dollars on YouTube that did not exist when I was growing up. Like no one was saying I want to be a YouTube star. Now I see the more like with residual, the faster you can get to that point, the faster you can start doing things that you really want to do. And that's what that's what I would recommend for somebody.
Yeah, that's so good. Because as soon as you hit that point, just to elude on that, then everything that you start doing becomes like fun. And crazy enough, you start making more money than before. Mm-hmm. Right. And it kind of can just compound itself in a good way. I mean, I think that's great advice. Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently on your journey to financial freedom?
So this is going to sound counterintuitive to my being, but this is also an experience that I've gone through. And it's very similar to, everyone once heard, on the airplane, if something goes down, like put your mask on first before you put it on anybody else, so you can actually help them. And it translates to me where I actually limited the speed of my growth by focusing on other people first. So in this scenario, I believe it's 100% okay to get selfish and say, here, I'm going to put my mask on first. I'm going to get this down. So when it's time to like get in the trenches with other people, I have this layout for them. You can say, hey, this is what works for me. Let's see if we can implement it in your business and duplicate it that way, rather than trying to go and help everybody at the same time. In my opinion, again, getting selfish, and it sounds counterintuitive. If you talk to me like for long enough, you'll understand like the selfishness is, I'm more about, helping other people and doing that. But in this scenario, 100%, I think you need to get selfish, get it dialed in, get proof of concept, and then bring the others along with you.
No, I think that's great. And whether you're looking at, that can be applied to so many areas of life. But if you just look at like your budgeting, right? Like if you budget and put it all on paper, hey, this is what I'm going to spend this month. This is what I'm going to make this month. This is what's left over. And you're just intentional about that. Then, you will have extra money to be able to go out and, donate to a charity or donate some extra time to something that's important to you, a local cause, anything like that, right? Versus if you're so strapped because you're not living on a budget, you're stressed because you don't know where your money's going. You do your taxes every year and you realize, holy cow, I made how much money and where did it all go, right? If you're stuck in that mentality, then it becomes really difficult to help people. Yet when you kind of are intentional about this kind of stuff, you're able to, and again, this applies to so many areas in our lives, but you're able to help other people at a greater degree. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a spiritual person. I believe that, there is a greater being, whether you call it God, the universe, whatever. I believe we're here for a purpose, right? And that purpose is we're all interconnected. We're all meant to help other people on this journey called life. You never know how you're going to be able to help somebody. So you're now the COO of an app that, you don't know what kind of a blessing you're being to those people by getting that launched, right?
Yeah.
It could be something that somebody really needs and progresses something in an area of their life they needed you specifically for. So it's not selfish. I definitely agree with you that, you have to work on yourself, personal development, your personal finance, and then get to a point where you can help other people because the money doesn't matter anymore.
Mhm.
Right. And then that's when you have big impact in the world. And I think, all the big gurus or self-development people, whoever you want to call them, right? They hit that financial freedom, then they're able to just go all in on what's most important to them. And then that's when, all of a sudden they're the overnight success, right? After they put the 10,
Yeah.
7, whatever, how many years they needed to get to that point where they could finally just go, this is what I'm passionate about. This is my purpose. And they go all in at that. All of a sudden, like, but we never take into account the 10 years or however much effort it took to get there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree
think
100%.
it's awesome.
Like you said, the how we're interconnected and like how we can help each other. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. Have you seen Umbrella Academy?
No, I haven't.
So it is I think it's on Netflix, Netflix or Amazon Prime. I can never remember. But the idea is it's kind of Avengers superhero style, but it's these, I think it was 6 or 7 kids were born on the same day, and they were all born with like superpowers that they didn't know that they had. But it was like, after watching that, I was like, everyone has a superpower. Like one's not greater than the other just because maybe your superpower is super strength. Maybe your superpower is you're super small and you can fit in small spots where this big guy can't. Like, that's a strength to you. You might not be able to lift as much weight as him, but like I 100% believe that everyone has their own superpower. And as you said, like what did that guy need from me? Like, just me out here doing TikTok videos, and he's like, you just get it. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's do this. But there was something there that was he wanted, that what was my superpower in that moment. But I believe, like, part of your superpower is understanding what you're doing, like even with this podcast, and trying to get other people to do that and giving them a layout and a plan. Like, there's not everyone needs that, but there's a lot of people that do, and there's a lot of people that don't even realize they need it yet. And hopefully they hear something like your podcast and go, oh, you see what Jordy's doing, and listen, like, you follow his framework. So yeah, I like how you kind of say that we're connected in that way, in order to like give value and make each other more valuable.
Yeah, totally. I love what you said, because most people don't know what they don't know, right? So most
Mhm.
people are broke. They don't have enough savings to cover a $400 emergency. And yet, they're expected to go on and help these companies and do all this stuff in life. And if you're stressed about money, like, you can't go and do that kind of stuff. Right. So
Mhm.
I think it's awesome that you were able to go and help other people build their real estate businesses through the brokerage EXP.
Mhm.
And you're able to, help them, anyone that joins EXP, you're able to help them grow their business and be a broker or a mentor of some sort to them. You get paid out of the company's commission. They have it
Yeah.
totally structured like that, right?
Mhm.
And it's maybe a little bit different than other guests we have had or will have on this show, that most of them were very heavily focused on real estate. But like myself, I own 32 rental properties. I've got my expenses there. I've got my gross revenue. And, after everything's said and done, I'm hoping, or most of the time I do, make a profit every single month.
Mhm.
But there's other risks associated with that. And the cool thing is, you're able to help people by helping their business. The revenue sharing is what it's called. The process that EXP has allowed you to help other agents. And it can be, you're in Las Vegas, people in Canada, people in New York, wherever. You can help them with their business. You get a little cut that they would have paid to a brokerage anyways, right?
Yeah.
When I was at another brokerage, I won't name their name, but they're very big in red. We paid a commission cap in, and that went to tons of office space, tons of staff, right? And EXP is just built for this century where, a lot of that's virtual and they don't have those expenses. And so they're able to benefit and help other agents. It's all about cash flow, right? So you're able to
Mhm.
consistently get cash flow because you're out there creating massive value. That's awesome. Anything you want to add?
Well, I'm just gonna jump on that, about helping people, because there's a barrier of entry to get to that broker aspect, right? Where, maybe because like, yeah, I always say this. We talked about basketball a couple of times, but you talk about, so North Carolina was just in the championship last night. But people will say, like, who's the highest scorer or all-time leading scorer for North Carolina? Most everyone says Michael Jordan. Everyone knows Michael Jordan, all that stuff. But it's Tyler Hansbrough. Michael Jordan is arguably the best player ever. Tyler Hansbrough was in the league for a little bit and gone, right? His game didn't translate to that. So there's a lot of agents that are really good agents, and they're really good at networking and connecting and teaching and all that stuff. But they try to make that jump to the brokerage aspect, and they want to be a broker, and they go, now I got to handle like all this, admin stuff and all these things that they weren't having to handle before, where, at EXP, you leverage what they have for you already. So you can come in and build your team like a typical brokerage. You can even have your, add your own split to it if you want, for your team there. But you don't have to deal with all the stuff that a typical broker does. And you don't have to worry about that overhead either, or having to compete with your agents. I've always thought it was very, very counterintuitive and tough. Like we were talking earlier about, how do you get your agents to be the best agents as a broker if eventually they might leave you and be your competition? So you can't really give them all your secrets, right? And I was at an event 3 years ago, where the speaker said that they coach 14 different brokers. 13 of them had to compete and close deals on their own just to keep their doors open. There was only one that was flowing profitably as just a broker and letting their agents take care of everything. So you don't know what you don't know is that you think you want to become a broker, and it's like, well, that's the next step. And here's all the stuff I have to do now. Now I have my name up in the lights. I didn't care about that, so it didn't matter. Like I was like, all right, like I can do what I wanted to do, and now I'm not responsible for all this stuff, or even, and I can do it even more, or in even more locations. So that's another powerful thing I just want to throw on top of that aspect of being able to help and build. And also, like, I was thinking yesterday, like, man, what is life about? Like, you're talking about decisions, and people like Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, like wearing the same shirt every day, so they don't have to make a decision. Like, that's one less decision of the day. Yeah. And I started thinking about, how do you limit? Obviously, I'm like to take risks, and I like to try new things. So it's tough, but I mean, is the goal to make the least amount of bad decisions as possible? But I can't remember. I'm not sure why that sparked in my head, but I was just thinking about like the different things that you can leverage, and the things that you don't have to think about, basically.
Yeah. There's a lot competing for our attention out there, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So, well, cool, man. I've really enjoyed this time. I respect your time. And if people want to know more about you, they want to get your book, where can they go?
They can go to the semiretiredagent.com. Or you can, follow me on, reach out, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, just at Brandon DeVere.
Okay.
Just find me on any of those social medias. The only one I'm not really on is Twitter. And only not because I have anything against it, but like you said, all these things competing for our time. trying to be on all of them is just I'm a mess.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for bringing massive value, and hopefully you guys will continue listening. And here you go on your journey to being a financially free investor. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Financially Free Investor. If you found value in this episode, or know someone who would find value in this information, please share with them, subscribe, and send us a review.